Up next, we have Kirin Sinha. She is the founder and CEO of Illumix, an augmented reality gaming and technology company focused on developing adaptive and immersive experiences for mobile phone. The first app built by Illumix, Friday Night at Freddy's AR, a jump scare horror game, was released in November 2019 to great success and is the highest rated AR game on iOS and Android. Illumix is backed by some of the top venture capitalists and one Fast Company's most innovative companies in 2020. She received a degree in electrical engineering and computer science and mathematics from MIT and holds advanced degrees in mathematics, statistics, and business from the University of Cambridge, LSE, and Stanford, respectively. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share my screen. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the game and hopefully show some fun videos, but also just a little bit more generally some of the challenges that we faced as a startup, as someone introducing a product to a relatively nascent market, and how we thought about addressing some of those. So we'll just kind of walk you through a little bit of the startup journey here. So start out with, we obviously did introductions a little bit, but my name's Kirin. And Illumix is really initially focused very heavily on AR gaming. So how do we take this concept of AR and actually turn it into something that can touch everyday consumers, that can build a world around you and really enable users to live in some kind of fantasy, or in this case, since we did horror, kind of have a nightmare come to life and you live inside of that. We took the franchise Five Nights at Freddy's and we brought it to you in your real world, into your home. And that was something that worked out quite well for us. We saw a lot of the fans respond incredibly positively. We have the most active community in the franchise at the moment. And I'll share kind of the first thing that we really faced was communicating what the vision was. So we came out of stealth to explain what we did. Actually, sorry, let me stop sharing and share with audio again. There we go. Alrighty. So the first challenge we had was really just communicating what AR was to the mass market. I think that often when you're working on your own startup, especially in an emerging tech market, you are so familiar with your space and your vision and the idea that it becomes very easy to assume that the entire world is and every consumer is. And since we were really targeting not necessarily a highly technically advanced group, but actually really the mass market, it became really obvious early on that we had to communicate what was AR, and more specifically, what was it that Illumix AR was? What were we offering that was differentiated? If anyone did really understand what AR was, which is a relatively small group of people, honestly, most people thought it was Pokemon Go, which is really more geolocation than pure AR. And so that was something that we had to clarify very early on. Our game actually has, in some ways, the inverse kind of relationship with geolocation to Pokemon Go, where Pokemon Go's whole concept was you go out to find the game. Ours was the game comes to you. So these animatronics are stalking you and coming to whatever location you are, and then you have these AR experiences with them. So we had to find a way to communicate that very early on so that people's expectations aligned well with the experience. And because it was really something that at that time, I don't think there was any mass market AR game that had that premise that wasn't a go to a location and kind of collect something mechanic. It became a real challenge for us to overcome that barrier with the audience. And so the way that we chose to do this was, I suppose, relatively simple, of just showing them firsthand what it was so that they could have an understanding and also get really excited about this very new form of gameplay. So without further ado, we released a trailer. This was built literally with a GoPro taped to the head, running through a home. It was one of the more fun nights early on in the startup. And this trailer went viral almost immediately. We had millions of views in the first week, which was crazy. And that really put us on the map. So I'll go ahead and play this and hopefully you guys can hear the audio. I will never get sick of watching that. But that kind of was our initial way of communicating. And sure enough, very early on, people understood, okay, this is very much not Pokemon Go that's about to happen. And of course, that had to also align with our product. This did align very closely to what our gameplay was. And as a result of that, and as a result of people really liking it, we saw massive organic growth. So in the first month, we had over 1.5 million users. We have never spent on user acquisition through the App Store or anything. We've seen over 10 million organic unique users to date. We see, about 2 million in terms of MAU each month, even now a year post. And I think this last month we're higher than Harry Potter Wizards Unite and Minecraft Earth and stuff. So we've really kind of been able to build a community around what we're calling AR first. So truly prioritizing AR interactions. And this is something that we've actually seen users really, really tie into. So one thing that's unique, I think, about Five Nights at Freddy's AR is that this is an AR required game. There's no button to turn it off, or it's not AR optional. This is not, in so many games, Pokemon Go and that whole genre, it's almost like a gimmick that gets you in at the beginning, and then so many people turn off their camera. With us, 70% of time or 69% of time is actively spent in camera mode, moving around your home or moving around whatever location you're in. And so that's something that we saw even before COVID, and certainly those numbers have even increased since then. So what we really benefited from in terms of organic
coming to get me, but yeah, we're next to a lake as well. So yeah, as you can see, we're in a forest.
He has gone into a random forest.
Oh dear.
Video and posted on YouTube, and we saw this.
This is actually terrifying. Oh, static here.
A year ago.
It's actually quite hard to see the static in the dark.
Try to show
Look how staticky it is. Oh god, it's actually on the camera. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, relax, relax.
So this was something that whether you were traveling somewhere to try this or you were away from home, this was something that people really hadn't experienced before. And I think made the interactions with that brand so much more personal because it's happening in your home, in your space. And it was something people really loved and wanted to create content around. So that was very beneficial for us. The other challenge that we have to talk about is for a mass consumer audience, there is really no headset that can even possibly touch the user base of the phone. And so we were completely centered around mobile AR because our focus was the mass consumer audience. And the reality is the mobile phone has challenges in how it's designed of forcing someone to hold it up, to move around your space. There's a very small field of view. And so many AR experiences start with this user setup. So how do I, walking around, trying to align something, placing something down, we wanted that all to be absolutely seamless, where the user had to do nothing. The system itself was making choices for you based on the space. And so that was very challenging. Part of how we handled this was heavy on the technical side, which I'll get into next. And some of it was on the design side. So how do we leverage the phone itself to have an experience that makes sense? So looking through the camera, using things like flashlight, how do we make this something that feels organic and like what users were already used to? And again, having that immediacy, I think that's such a key step that I think hurts so many AR experiences is anytime you're asking the user to do something, people are frustrated. You lose a vast majority of your people from download to actually becoming an active user. And so if you're asking them to do setup beyond that, I think it's a real killer. And so we had to develop an engine and system that did that automatically. So this resulted in, I think, a lot of the additional AR interaction, the fact that they didn't have to set it up, that it happened automatically, and it was sort of this magical experience. So much of standard mobile AR, I think, is a translation of things that already exist. And I think part of that has to do with just the tools that are available. You're used to building in Unity and Unreal, which are built for 3D worlds. But of course, we're dealing with the real world. And so often you see, here's something that happens totally isolated in a 3D arena, just go place it somewhere in reality, but it doesn't really interact and create an immersive and engaging experience. Whereas ours was designed for AR end to end. And that was very effective for us. The third challenge I hit on is just technical. Someone I think asked this in the Q&A earlier, but it's an apt point that AR, for AR specifically, even though we have a platform, the mobile phone, that gives us a large access to the audience, there are not really the tools today, and there's barely the technology that lets us do something really meaningful with it. And so this is where a lot of Illumix's time and effort has actually gone, is not just on the gaming content side, but very heavily on, we actually built our own AR engine. We have to account for a very varied mobile landscape, all kinds of bottlenecks around heat, hardware, operating systems. There can be really severe performance implications if you're using certain things right out of the box, like AR Kit, AR Core, and that's not even accounting for, we have what we call film quality AR. So the graphics are very advanced. There's full VFX. We wanted this to feel real, like a nightmare coming to life. And so that required us to really rethink and re-architecture large pieces of the puzzle. And we also had to add in additional computer vision and machine learning infrastructure. Some of our gameplay modules are actually based off of things in your real life. So based on objects we see or things like that, different gameplay will emerge. And so to have that level of intelligence happening on real time on device, that's just not something that existed and could possibly handle that. And so our solution has been, and this is what we've been working on for the last 2-3 years, has been a proprietary AR engine, which is what our game currently runs on, and our own tool set. This is covered, I mean, this is a small portion of what we had to do, but multi-layer optimization, dynamic adjustments, custom shaders, FPS targeting, sampling, memory gains, and then a ton of machine learning modules, all architected in a way where we can turn things on and off, where it's optimized for each individual phone, OS, hardware, the whole nine. This has been the largest part of our effort at Illumix. And so this is really what's, I think, fueled in a lot of ways Freddy's success. What you can see is as we improve things on the engine, you can actually see the performance of the game improve. And so this has really been where we've been focused, is how do we develop the best engine? How do we develop the best technology and tools to accelerate AR development, specifically focused at the mass market consumers? So yeah, that's a little bit about where we are. And we think that the AR opportunity here is huge. We've seen it very actively resonate with consumers. And I think particularly most of our audience is younger. So Gen Z millennials, which are very mobile first. And I think they are naturally more of the creator audience versus pure consumers. And that's a really good fit with AR. It drives incredible virality and revenue. We've seen that firsthand. And in general, it improves performance of brands and gives you that online, offline element. And so there is a real mass market there today. And AR stands a huge opportunity, I think, to unlock a completely different dimension to connect with them. And so that's everything. If you have questions, obviously, I think we have a Q&A starting now, but feel free to reach out to me at that email as well, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.